if you have something on your schedule, then when somebody needs you or wants you or or there's something required of you, you can schedule around it. And so having a schedule is super important to be productive and to make that time for the deep work.
Welcome to Champions Mojo Weekly Podcast, where your hosts Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker share with you what it takes to be a champion. Kelly is a former Division I head swim coach, Olympic trials qualifier, and holds Masters World and National swimming records. And Maria holds world records in endurance cycling and was the overall women's winner of the world's toughest bike race, Race Across America. They'll be sharing their personal stories and wisdom, along with interviewing other champions to give you the tools you need for becoming a true champion in your own life. And now, your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo Podcast. We promise that today's show is going to bring value to your life. We could all use some help with time management. I know that I can. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we are going to give you 5 key points that will help you be more productive and make more time for the things that you love doing. And as always, I'm co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Kelly. We've said before that time management may not sound like the most exciting topic to discuss, but it really is important in being productive and achieving your goals. If you're a checklist person like me, I think you're going to really benefit from today's show.
Thanks, Maria. Yes, and I wanted to ask you, have you noticed with all these super successful champions that we've interviewed so far, many of them mention time management as a tool that they count on?
Yes, Kelly, I have noticed that. So let's dig into the 5 pillars of time management that our research for this show brought up. And I'll take number 1, prioritizing the toughest thing on your to-do list first. So I think prioritizing is probably the master key to all time management. People who are known as champions or who are productive have more than they can do on their list every day. I make lists. In fact, I'm sitting here looking at a list that's 14 pages long of things that I would like to do. There's no way I'm going to be able to do all of them. So in order to be really productive in the things that I care the most about, I have to look through my list each day. Now, this list is for the whole week, but I have to look through the list and say, okay, what's the most important thing I can do today to achieve my goals or to get where I want to go? You know, you have lots, everybody understands the difference between urgent and important. I think the most important thing to do is prioritize what's important. Make sure that you can write down 3 things that you have to get done that day to move you towards your goals. And prioritizing is really tough because, like I said, for those of us who are productive, we often get asked to do lots of things. And if you're like me, you like to say yes. In fact, that's a problem for me. I say yes to too many things. So I have to say, no, I can't do that because I have prioritized working towards this goal or doing this project.
So this is what you call eating the frog, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think when we talk about prioritizing doing the toughest thing, it doesn't necessarily have to be, to me, the toughest thing. Although it is good to get the hard stuff out of the way. But for me, it is eating the frog in terms of making sure that I am doing what's important first. And often that is the hard thing because I've been putting it off. So let's see, let me give you an example. I'm working on a project that for work where I have to do some research to learn about a new way to sell our bicycles. And it's very difficult for me. It's not something I understand. And the very next thing on the list is for me to understand it, to wrap my arms around it, to do the research. And so I've got to do the research. And the last thing I want to do first thing in the morning is to sit down at my desk and do the research that I need to do to understand this new selling style. But it's important. It's important for the success of my business. And so I will do that first.
Yes, that's very, very important. And it brings me to number 2, which is something that is so important and makes us so much more productive, and that's called eliminating distractions. So the flip side of saying that would be to focus. And I think what we have, and yet another word of focus is a buzzword that's out there that I think we're all so lacking, but I can see you doing your research, and that is called deep thinking. Deep thinking is a skill that many of our thought leaders on productivity think that we're all missing now, because we can become so distracted with everything from our cell phones going off to things in your environment that are distracting you. But mostly it's technology that's distracting us. And I'll tell you who is just a master of knocking out terribly hard to-do list is my husband, Mark. He is absolutely the most disciplined person when it comes to not having distractions. And it's an area that I've learned from him on that we can actually, it can kind of make me feel badly, but then I respect him so much that he will get into he will do something that he needs to think deeply on. So for example, we're realtors. So having to write a lease or write a contract for the sale of a house or to do comparative market analysis, this takes deep thinking. You cannot be being pinged by your phone or having me walk over and say, "Oh, what are we doing this weekend?" Mark he will tell me, "Do not talk to me for the next 30 minutes." And he does it in the most Marine Corps mode of, "I'm serious, don't talk to me for 30 minutes. And so I really respect that, and I've learned to do that, but he does it so well. And he can chunk out these big, deep thinking projects from, like I said, just a lot of legal real estate contracts they just require a lot of thinking. So I've learned that from him. And then I did a little deeper research for this topic today for our listeners, is that we are 40% more productive, and we finished our projects 40% faster if we are completely focused. So that means turn off your phones, tell your roommates or your spouses, or, don't let somebody come up to you and interrupt you, because it takes a huge effort to get your mind back to where it was. A big pillar of number 2 is to eliminate distractions, get into that deep thinking mode, and focus on what you have to do.
That's really true. And it is the buzzword right now. Everybody's talking about it because we've become a society of distractions. My phone dings and buzzes, and it keeps you from really concentrating on something. And for me, the best time to do deep work or deep concentrated is in the morning. So you have to know your schedule. And I turn off my phone. I put it in another room, actually. And I will make myself, I set time blocks, because if I set a block for, I'm going to get through this right now, then I may or may not do it. But I tell myself, okay, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to be working on this project that is my frog or whatever that requires focused work. And I think that's one thing you have to know about yourself is when are you most likely to be able to do your focused work, and make sure you put that work on the calendar at the right time, which brings us to number 3, which is put it on the schedule. So this is kind of classic time management. Schedule your day. I think I know for me, and it's probably true for you too, Kelly, that the things that are already routine for me, I do not have to put on a schedule. I know that when I wake up in the morning, I've got a routine where I exercise, I shower, I pray, I do the things. I don't have to have those on the schedule. My schedule starts around 8:30 in the morning. And that's when I have to put the 3 important things down that I know I have to get done. And I put those on the schedule. And if I have those on the schedule, by the end of the day, when I look back, I won't put, for instance, if somebody needs to meet with me or something, I'll say, "I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm busy from 10 to noon, doing my deep work." I won't say that. I'll say I have a meeting or an appointment. So if you have something on your schedule, then when somebody needs you or wants you or or there's something required of you, you can schedule around it. And so having a schedule is super important to be productive and to make that time for the deep work we were just talking about. And I try to do that most days. I try to, I write down the 3 big things that I need to do, and then I try to put them in a time schedule. And then when something comes up, I say, nope, busy from 1 to 2, can't do that. Or what? Do you have a system like that, Kelly?
Yes, and I have actually had to tweak my system a little bit today. I've been really looking forward to talking with you about time management, because you and I even share our Google calendars, so I can look and say, oh, this is where Maria is. This is what Maria's doing. That is one of the things I wanted to talk about. Is the Google calendars are great if you need to share with people. So when we're talking about scheduling, the other thing I wanted to touch on is, yes, you are one of the most disciplined people I know, like my husband. You don't have to put on your schedule to exercise or pray or shower. But I want to talk to someone that isn't as disciplined, that maybe doesn't have exercise already in their routine. And the thought leaders say, put exercise on your calendar. Unless like for you, it's automatic. You roll out of bed, you go for a run, or you get your exercise done. But I really think putting exercise on there is important if you're not an automatic exerciser. And then the one thing I wanted to add to this number 3 point of putting it on the schedule is putting fun things on the schedule.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, and because if you don't, you're just from task to task to task. Also, putting date time with your significant other, because
family
they're
time,
going to feel
schedule
family
it.
time, date time, schedule it so that it's in there. And I wanted to throw in what I learned today. I'm really excited. I've got a big retreat that I'm leading this weekend. I'm going to be doing a Champions Mojo retreat, and actually doing it with Trish Blackwell, who's been on our show with her College of Confidence. So we're gonna go meet with the North Carolina State women's swimming team, and we're going to lead their leadership retreat weekend, talking about leadership, and we're going to talk about the techniques of champions and helping them set up
Wonderful.
a great season. And so I'm up in the mountains right now, and the closest Staples is 45 minutes away, or the closest place to get a handbook printed. So Trish and I have been working feverishly all week to get this handbook put together. I want to have it completely, ready to pick up on my way to Raleigh this weekend or on Friday morning. And so I drove 45 minutes in there. And when I'm in town like that, I want to go on a big grocery shop. So Mark gives me this big grocery list. And then I have to be back to record with you at 4:00. So I leave myself literally as like a 15-minute buffer for each of those things, which is one of the things that I wanted to say is an extra thing. So on my way out of the driveway, I go down our beautiful mountain road here with trees, and I run into one of my close friends on the mountain who's out on a run, and I see her and I wave to her. And yet I did not schedule any time in there to talk with her. So I said,
Right.
I'm so sorry, Pam. I'm going to be a little short. I've got to get into Boone and get back and grocery shop, and I got to be back by 4:00. So this is what happened. So I come out of Staples and I have a good solid hour to grocery shop. The undercarriage of my car, which has this plastic, kind of heavy plastic sheet that covers the undercarriage, had somehow become unlodged and dropped down to the bottom of the car, and it was dragging along the road.
Oh no.
So, yeah. So I come out of Staples. I now have 1 hour to shop, but I can't go to shop because my car needs repair. So I take it, over to this gas station where, the guy says, well, let me see if I have the right bolt. It's missing a bolt. He brings out 3 different bolts. Long and short, it takes 45 minutes, which leaves me 15 minutes to shop for a good, like I had a huge grocery list. So I fly into the grocery store like an athlete on a mission. I shop like literally like
jogging down the aisle.
I literally look. It's 3:00. I have to be on the road at 3:15 so I can be home for 4:00 for you. I literally throw, like just a bunch of stuff in the grocery cart. I am in the car driving at 3:15, so I've made it, but the actual stress level, the cortisol rolling through my body, it was just
not worth it.
Not worth it. So the moral of my story is, and I probably was driving too fast, that one of the things we don't talk about putting on our schedules are buffers. I mean, maybe other people do, but I've never done that. I just think that with all the things that we have going on, that maybe an extra 15 minutes for every appointment. So that was my lesson on put it on the schedule. So
I think that's really important. And what you're really talking about is flexibility, because in the end, for me, if I have an interaction with family or with somebody I love or somebody I care about, a friend, that takes, that's a surprise or takes longer than I anticipate, I always tell myself, wait a minute here. What's more important? Is it to have all the grocery shopping done before I leave? Or is it to interact, with this, with my loved one who may or may not be in need? Now, that's not always the case. You could have your whole day sucked up by social interactions, right? I mean, that don't mean that much. So, I mean, I think in each moment, like I'm like you. I mean, I'll have my day scheduled down, to the quarter hour, even with buffers, and and something will come up. And, and I have to make a decision in that moment. Okay, is this thing that's come up here? Is this something that, that fits in with my values to switch my schedule around? So, I mean, I think you have to have buffer, you have to have flexibility, and otherwise, otherwise your life means nothing. I mean, you could get everything done on your to-do list. And if you miss an opportunity with family or friends or whatever it is that you value, then, it's silly. So, there is, for me, I'm always, doing that balance. I live next door to my grandchildren. So if they come running out of the house calling my name, I can't, I'm not going to hide out. I need to spend 15 minutes blowing bubbles instead of maybe making dinner or whatever, or making that sales call. So I think it's
beautiful.
I think it's an area that you have to know your values in. I guess that would be my comment on that.
I love that, and that's like the North Star to guide you. Yes, and I think in that moment, I literally, when I was leaving there, I thought, you know what, I'm going to skip the groceries. We'll just but then Mark is like my number one priority of everything in the whole world,
right?
And to show up with no groceries, his little face would have been just crestfallen if I didn't have.
So it was a choice of love. It was a choice of love to go sprinting through the grocery store.
Yeah,
because you didn't need the food. You're leaving.
Yeah, I just got the items that he wanted because I knew the things that he wanted. So that was it. I couldn't disappoint him. He was my North Star guiding me. So. So that was number 3.
That's good.
Far, our 3, just leading up, because repetition is the mother of learning, we're prioritizing the most important thing as number 1. We're eliminating distractions as number 2. We're putting it on the schedule with some flexibility. And then
and buffer.
Did I say number 3? Number
yeah,
1,
that's
2,
number
3.
3.
Yeah, and number 4 is, this one is the one, Maria, that, I've tried to help you with, and I'm good at it for some reason.
And even the sentence that you're about to say is going to hurt me.
Just say no. All right, that's number 4. Just say no. I know it's hard. It's
harder for some than others. It's harder for some than others. Jim and I were just talking about this in the car. Why is it hard for me to say no? And I think it's partly being a middle child and trying to make everybody happy.
Yes, people pleasers have a real problem with saying no. And we talked about this just a little bit in, I think it was our rest and relaxation podcast earlier, but it's simply that if, you don't have to say why you're saying no. And you don't have to say, and Mark and I have this saying that I love, which is, it's not as much, it's not what you say sometimes, it's how you say it. So if someone asks you to do something that you don't have time for, your initial insight is like, oh, I don't have time for that, but I don't want to say no to this person. Just being very sweet when you say no and just say, I'm so sorry. I don't have time for that in my schedule. Period. There doesn't have to be an explanation of it, of why you don't have time or all the things that you have, to do. And then I think this helped you the last time we talked about it, was that I think that frees up this person to get someone who can really give it their full attention. And, that just kind of frees me. When I say no, a lot of people will ask me to do things and I'll just say no. And then I'll think, they'll get somebody that'll do a better job than I would have done. And I don't, maybe that's rationalization, but I think to be able to say no.
I think that's really true. I mean, and there are lots of techniques in saying no that I have toyed with over the years, because as Kelly has constantly reminded me that, I say yes to too many things. And so one technique on that is, if you can't say no, do not say yes. Say, let me think about it, and give yourself 24 hours, or let me talk with my significant other about it. And that gives you an opportunity to, because in my moment, I want to make everybody happy. So in the moment, somebody will ask me to do something. I'll say, yeah, sure. I can do that. But I have learned to say, let me think about it. Well, not always, but I'm trying to get better at that. The other thing is, you're absolutely right. It's reminding yourself that you're not the savior of the world, that there are other people out there who may be able to do it, who probably will be able to do it better than you can. And for me, the third thing is, don't offer. Like sometimes, being a middle child and a people pleaser, I am paying attention to the people around me and their needs, and an idea will pop into my head and I'll think, what they need is this. And I'll offer to do things that I have no business offering to do, because I've got, my schedule is full.
And Maria, that is the second half of what of my notes is, say no to yourself, because it's not just like, you and I are very much, I'm a middle child too. And I still am a people pleaser, but I know that I'm going to make the people that I've said yes to much happier, like an A+ happy, than making everybody like a C+ happy if I do everything. So,
that's a good way to think about it.
It's also say no to yourself. And that is the other part. And I wanted to mention, getting back to you saying, well, let me think about it. My dad, your father-in-law, kindly known as, or lovely Trog, the Trog, as we call him, troglodyte, he is a big fan of Japanese culture. So we, as in our family, we hear a lot about Japanese culture because Dad loves Japanese culture and he spent some time in Japan. And he says that the Japanese people never say no, that they have a saying that they always, even if it's flat no, it's no. But he said, that it's no when they say to you, I will seriously consider it. So the Japanese people are very polite people. They don't say no. And their version of no, my dad says, and this is just his experience, is I will seriously consider it. So maybe you need to take on the Japanese culture and say, oh, let me seriously consider it. And then you can call them back and say no. But so Dad got that to be so ingrained in me as a youngster. I'm surprised you haven't heard this as the Parker family lore. You probably have if you think about it. So at one point when I was younger, I would ask Dad for something and he would say, I'll seriously consider it. And I knew it was a no. So that was his little joke about.
So, I work with Chinese and Chinese suppliers for my bicycle company, and they're very similar. They will not say no. but
Okay.
not
Yeah.
outright, I guess. But they do indicate to you that they can't do it. In American culture, it's different, and sometimes you have to be, more direct. But I think that, the saying no, to not offering, saying let me think about it, and remembering what you value and what you want. And if you're saying, there used to be a commercial on TV, the guy's saying, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that, and then he hangs up the phone, he says, how am I going to do that? I mean, you can fill your life so that you're working for everybody else, and you are not leading the life that you want to lead, the thoughtful life that you want to lead with your values. And this is something that I think about a lot, because I want to continue valuing, certain things. And when I say that means I'm spending time on those things. And my brother-in-law always said, you can tell what people value by what they spend their time and their money on. And if you're saying yes to everything, what you're saying yes to is your own ego, because you want to be liked or needed by many people. And that's something I have to talk to and about lecture myself on all the time. And Kelly holds me accountable. Thank you, Kelly.
Oh, I love it. Love it. All right, Maria, you got number 5.
Yeah, number 5. And this one is so great. And I'm just learning about it. And number 5 is delegate. And people who have trouble saying no often also have trouble delegating. Delegating is asking other people to do some of the tasks that you don't need to be doing because you're too busy or because you have strengths in other areas. I've thought a lot about delegating over the last year, and I had the best experience. Last year, I hired a personal assistant because I was spending a lot of time doing things that were urgent and important, but not really moving me towards my goal. So I hired a personal assistant, and she was fabulous. It took a while, but she was doing all these little things that I had been doing, and it freed me up to do the deep work on the tough projects that I wanted to do. So delegating, you have to have somebody to delegate to, and that's really important. And you have to trust the people that you delegate. And sometimes that means that they're not going to do it exactly the way you do it. And so if you have a huge long to-do list and about 3/4 of them are things that you don't need to be doing that anybody can do, then find someone who can do them for you. There's all kinds of online services that will help you to take care of travel arrangements or shopping. And in today's day and age, we can delegate electronically. So if you make my 14-page list of these, of these things on my list, many of them I can put on, I can give to somebody else to do, and that's an investment too, to find someone or a service that will do it for you. It took me, we just moved. One of the things that I delegate is having my home cleaned. I was so busy for a while, I couldn't stop to hire somebody to clean my house. I finally just told myself I had to do it. And so I took the hour or two that it took, and I hired somebody, and I'm just so relieved because now my house is always clean and it's just one thing off my to-do list. So delegating is a really important and sort of multifactorial skill, but I would encourage anybody whose to-do list seems overwhelming to work on thinking about how they can delegate. If you have a mother and you have children, your children can do a lot more than you think. It's going to take some time to train them, but one of the things that when I was a young mother is I would say to myself, what can the children be doing to that I'm doing right now? And they can do a lot of stuff. They can clean up their own toys. They can do they can put away their own clothing. They can dress themselves. They can even do dishes and so forth. So delegating is an important, and it's a boss skill too. We have to learn to be effective. We have to learn to have other people help us. What experience have you had with delegating, Kelly?
I think delegating is a great one. It's very hard for me. I have gotten, just because of all the stuff that I have to do, and I have been, a leader of many people, so I've had to delegate at different times. But just a little example that I think is great. You said technology is so helpful now. I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty good graphic artist. I'm pretty good with software, creating, websites and brochures and flyers and things that I do for, different things that I'm into. But I've found it's an online platform called Upwork, UPWORK, Upwork. And you can hire a graphic artist on there and put your price. I mean, literally, like if you want a flyer, you could put $20 and you would get 10 responses from graphic artists all over the world that would do your thing. So I've started, I've always been a delegator. It's probably my hardest thing of these 5 things that we've gone over, but I think it's just hugely important. And like Mark and I often say that our skill set at what we do has gotten to a certain point. And if we're making X number of dollars an hour, do we want to do something that is 10% of that when we could hire somebody to do it? Everything from, doing your yard work to changing the oil in your car. I mean, a lot of people, I know a lot of guys that change the oil in their car, and maybe, it saves them $10, but it's certainly something that you can get done for you. So I think that's a great one.
Well, let me just add to that, sometimes we do things because we enjoy them. Like
yes.
I could delegate cooking, but I like to cook a meal. So,
sure.
So, I mean, I'm not always going to be cooking, but it's an unwind time for me. So I think you have to think to yourself, am I doing this because I want to do it, or because I have to do it, or because I'm trying to save $5 or whatever?
Right.
We're both entrepreneurs, and we know, if we pay somebody to do it, something we could do ourselves is going to cost us something, but then we are free. We have the free time to do the deep work, or, to love the people in our lives or whatever. So I really like delegating. I think it is really hard, and it's an advanced skill.
It is an advanced skill, which is probably why it's the hardest one for me. So just to summarize the 1 through 5, the first one is to prioritize the most important thing. Number 2 is eliminating distractions. Number 3, put it on the schedule. Number 4, just say no. Number 5, delegate. And so, Maria, the action that you're going to take out of this, what are you going to take out of here? Action items.
I as we were just talking about delegating, I was thinking of all the additional things that I can delegate. I might even try to hire another personal assistant here. I've moved, so I couldn't take my assistant with me, but she made my life so good. So I think I'm going to work this week on, as I go through my list, figuring out what things I can delegate, and then taking the time to do it. Because delegating, it's like any other project. You have to put the front end work in so that next week and next month you have the free time. And I think that's what keeps those of us who are super busy sometimes from delegating. It's like, I don't have time to delegate. I know how to do this. I'm just going to do it. My action item for this week is to look through my list and maybe create a separate list of things that can be delegated.
I think that's great. And it's like sowing the seeds, like delegating.
Right.
You've got to train somebody. And I've been there so much, like, by the time I train an assistant, there was a year period where I did have a personal assistant. And it was, every week that I met with her, it was a lot of time to meet and say, this is what I need done this week. But in the end, it was more productive for me. So yeah, it's putting in that upfront time. So I love that.
What about you?
Takeaway, my action. And this one, I didn't go into it as much, but you did, and I totally get it. I'm going to say no to me, not to, yes, I'm going to just say no to things that other people ask me to do that I don't have time for. But like, for example, when the NC State coach asked me to do this leadership retreat this weekend, oh my gosh, yes. There was not even a second's hesitation of, this is something that just, it lights up every bulb in my tree. I love swimming, I love NC State.
And you're going to be great at it.
Women. It's like, this was a huge, but it's been a huge time, taken a lot of my time, but I love it. So there will be things that people ask you to do that are just right in your wheelhouse that you just jump off the couch. Yes, I want to do it. So I'm going to say no to the things that I don't want to do, but I'm like you in that I will see a need in a friend or a family member, and then I'll volunteer to help them to myself, so it's
right.
And then I am not doing the other priorities in my life, or, like I said, I want to be doing an A+ for all the things that I've said yes to, and not a C+ to just too many things. So my action item is going to be stop with the wheels turning of how I'm, because I'm a coach, a creator, no. In fact, oh my gosh, this is perfect. I was going to start a second podcast.
Oh my.
And I thought, I even told you about it. I had this idea, and this is going to segue perfectly into our new close. So we had our Champions Mojo podcast reviewed by I think he's the greatest podcast coach out there, Dave Jackson. He's the School of Podcasting. He has a show called the Podcast Review Show, and he reviewed our podcast. And I asked him, hey, I'm
great.
thinking about yeah, it was great. It was great. And one of the things, which is we're going to talk about in our close, but I'm like, I think I want to start a second podcast. And he's like, don't do it. Don't do it. He said at one time he had 9 podcasts, and he said, he wished he'd just stayed with one. And that's what we're going to do. For me, I'm going to stay with Champions Mojo. I love it. I'm going to make this an A+ and not a B+ and then another B+ of something else. So that was my own little, what Mark and I call an evil brain child. So I'm going to say an evil brain child. I
have a lot of evil brain childs.
Yeah,
children.
So say no to the evil brain childs. And then we are getting ready to close. So on the podcast review show, Dave, it was actually, I believe it was after the recording had happened. Was it, Maria? Did you hear us talking about our close, or was it on the recording?
No,
part?
I don't think so. I don't think I heard that part.
So
no.
it was after the recording. So he had spent a great hour. He and another podcast coach named Eric had spent an hour, going over our show. And then he said, now, is there anything else that you feel like you want to ask us? And I said, yes. I feel like at the end of each show, I stumble, I stutter, I can't quite close it out right, because every time I talk to Maria, I want to tell her that I love her, because I do.
Oh, that's right. I
you.
do remember this. This was fabulous.
So so it's like, I almost feel like I have to put on the brakes when I say, okay, Maria, it's been a great show. Have a great day.
Right.
And then I want to just say, I love you. And I don't say it. So it sounds awkward. It just sounds awkward. So he's like, I said, so can I say, I love you? He's like, yes, of course, you guys, if that's the way. So I said, yeah, I mean, the world needs more love in the world. And, Maria, you're my best friend.
And we do love each other.
You inspire me. You motivate me. I love you. I just love you so much. And so now I'm so happy that going forward from time management episode, I think this is 28. Yeah, episode number 28, that I can say, I love you when we sign off. So.
That's great, Kelly. I love you too. So I'm happy to be free to say it too. We're both collaborators, business partners, and also we love each other.
Yes, and we're sister-in-laws and friends. So anyway.
That's right.
So we will go to the quote of the week, and thank you guys so much for hanging with us and listening, and we'd love to hear what you're doing for time management. And another tip we got from our podcast coaches, we want to send everyone to our website. That's our new thing. One call to action. Go to championsmojo.com. Everything is there. If you want to download shows, if you want to contact us, that is where we hope that if you want to hear more of other episodes and find out more about Maria and I, please go to championsmojo.com.
Yes. I love you, Kelly.
Thank you for being my partner. We will see you next week. I love you.
Love you too. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye.
This week's quote of the week comes from Henry David Thoreau. It is not enough to be busy, so are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about?
We are so grateful that you spent this time with us today, and we hope that you heard something that inspired, motivated, and educated you. Please see below for our copy of the show notes for any links or important information referenced here. Signing off for myself and champion co-host Kelly Pallas, we hope you'll join us again soon. and we know you can be a champion. Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast, designed to make you feel inspired, motivated, and educated. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Also visit championsmojo.com to learn more.